All right, you are now live.
All right, great. Hi, everyone. This is the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting. This meeting is called to order at 4:20 p.m. We ran into some technical difficulty, but we will still have quite a good meeting. We will start with our land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. We'll start today's meeting with a roll call and AV check. When I call your name, I would ask each member to ensure their video and microphone is working. We will start with June Feswick. Is June here? Hello, June?
I have June in the meeting. It might just take a minute for the audio to come through.
Sure.
Maybe we can come back to June. I do see her in the meeting though.
Okay, that's great. Next, we have Glenn Babcock.
I believe my audio is working just fine.
Awesome. And I can see you there too. All right. And next we have Oliver Keith.
Hello, I'm here.
Thank you. Next in line is Thivyan Tharmaratnam. I believe he's not here present at the moment.
He's not here at the moment. He has let me know that he plans to join later on in the meeting.
Okay, that's great. Liz Dowell, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, great. April Adams.
I am here. Thank you. My bandwidth is won't work for video today, but I'm home in Halifax for the next meeting. So yay, video.
Yay! Yes, for sure. It's perfectly understandable. Rochelle Minette.
Yes, I'm here.
Yay. Next we have Deputy Mayor Kathy Deagle-Gaiman.
Good evening, everyone. All set for our meeting. Thank you.
Yay. Okay. And then we next have Councillor Trish Purdy. Oh, Purdy will be delayed to join the meeting as well. I just noticed in my notes. So we'll catch up with her then. And then now we have Councillor Paul Russell.
Good afternoon from Lower Sackville.
Right. And next is me. And obviously you guys can tell that I can talk and you can see me. I will now ask if there are any errors or omissions for the minutes of June 17, 2024 meeting. If there are none, I would invite a member to move the following motion. That the minutes of the June 17, 2024 Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting be approved as presented.
I can make
So
that
moved.
motion, Madam Chair.
Seconded.
Right. Seconded. All right. This is great. I'll call for the question. All those in favor say A or raise hands. Opposed?
Hi.
Aye. Okay, so so I have to ask because there's a lot of screens and I've only seen people go A, but there's some people who haven't really necessarily spoken up. Could I ask?
If I may.
Sure.
Celine.
Yes.
The way I typically do it is ask for everybody who is in favor, please say aye.
Okay.
Everybody responds. Everybody opposed, please say nay.
Okay.
And then everybody responds. So it's done as two separate transactions.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. All right.
You're welcome.
So those in favor say A.
Aye.
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 Aye, sorry. I'm reading it wrong. And raise hands or opposed. This is still new to me. Have patience with me. So everything, Elizabeth, guide me, help me with this one. Was everything carried from this perspective?
Yeah, I don't know if you asked if anyone was opposed.
Oh,
so
okay, that's
I have
it.
in the notes here, it says all those in favor say aye or raise hands and then opposed. So you'd also call for opposed after that.
Okay.
So is there anyone opposed?
Is there anyone opposed? Going once, going twice. All right, the motion has been carried. We will now move on to the approval of the order of business for today's meeting. To our legislative assistant, are there any changes to today's agenda?
So there are no changes from the clerk's office to today's agenda, but I believe a member has a request, is going to request to defer one of the items.
Okay,
Yes, this is Rochelle. I will move to defer item 6.1 to the next meeting since we didn't get the materials for it. Yes, that's the wording. I'll go with that.
okay, great. And as I am still quite new as the chair, the next thing in line, is it also for the motion? Yes?
Yeah,
Madam
so,
Chair,
oh.
Madam Chair, I will second the motion.
You will second the motion? Okay,
and now we'll just have a motion to approve the order for that the agenda be approved as amended.
okay, yes. So I go again about, for those in favor, say A. Is that it?
Yeah, all those in favor say
Okay.
A, all those opposed, and then call for all those opposed again.
Okay, so for those who approve, say A,
Okay,
A,
Aye.
and, or raise hands, yes, okay. And is there anyone opposed? No, okay, so the motion has been carried. The next is, I will now ask if anyone has a conflict of interest to declare as a result of an item on today's agenda. It appears there is not. Okay, and then we'll move down to item number 7. To our clerk, has any correspondence has been received?
No correspondence has been received from the clerk's office.
Thank you. To our clerk, are there any petitions to be presented?
No petitions have been received by the clerk's office.
Thank you. So next, for presentations, we do not have any. The next on our agenda is a presentation from Melissa Myers, Accessibility Advisor, regarding draft recommendations to the updated accessibility strategy. Melissa, you may begin with your presentation.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And Elizabeth, if you want to share the slides, that would be great.
Absolutely, I have them up. It'll just be a minute while I share my screen here. All right, is everyone able to see that? And does it appear full screen?
Yes.
it is not in presentation mode.
Not in, yeah, thank you, Councilor Russell.
Great, just hold on there. I will attempt to share my screen again. Can everyone see that? It should be in presentation mode.
It is
No.
not. No, we're looking at PowerPoint directly.
not coming up like that. All right, is that
Or
correct
better.
now?
Yes,
Okay,
that's correct.
perfect. Melissa, you go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melissa Myers, and I am the Accessibility Advisor here for HRM. And I just wanted to deal with the committee our draft updated accessibility strategy. Elizabeth, you can go to the next slide. So, just to give folks some background on the accessibility strategy, HRM approved the accessibility strategy in May of 2021. The accessibility strategy is reviewed every 3 years as accordance with the provincial accessibility act. So the act indicates that every 3 years municipalities must update their strategy. In order for this to happen, we've completed internal and external consultation. So in the fall of 2023, we did some consultation internally with HRM staff. So we had surveys that we roll out, and then we had an open house. And that open house was for all HRM staff. The surveys were more directed to senior leadership, as well as folks working in and on the accessibility strategy. And then in the spring recently, we did 10 public consultations. So we did 4 consultations that were virtual, and then we did 6 other consultations around HRM. And currently we are waiting feedback on senior leadership. So this draft went out recently last week to senior leadership. Next slide. So this is a timeline. So this is just an illustration of kind of where we're at, where we're going for the end of the year. So we are in July right now. So July is kind of looking at the recommendation, which is what I'm going to do today with you folks. We do have a task force that works on these recommendations well. So between the task force and leadership feedback that we get, we will take all that feedback and feedback that you folks provide, and we will look at that feedback and do one more revision of the strategy, and then hopefully get it off to the new regional council by December is our goal. So it takes a while for a report to go to council. So that's just an illustration. Next slide. So I'm just gonna go through the recommendations before I do. They are in categories, so we'll do one category at a time. There are some recommendations, folks, that we kept from the previous strategy, and then there are some new recommendations that we added. And as we go through, you'll see the new recommendations, because I put the word new, so them, so it would be easy to follow. Next slide.
Melissa, sorry to interrupt. I think your audio might be glitching a little bit.
Oh,
I don't know if
okay.
that's coming through on anyone else's end. It sounded like it cut out a few times.
I'll do my best to stay
Okay.
as close as I can to the screen, folks. So, first we're going to go over transportation and transportation infrastructure. So the first one is to and implement an online system for booking accessible within the Halifax region. To develop a passenger service regarding accessible services to measure success. 3 and 4 are new recommendations. So 3 says increase public awareness of accessible parking spaces within HRM. 4, increase targeted public awareness about snow removal for the disability community. Next slide. 5, so there's a little typo here, but 5 has really 2 recommendations and there wasn't new. So 5 is review the eligibility criteria for using accessible. The next recommendation would be audit accessibility of all transit shelters to determine recommendations to remove difficult obstacles. Number 6, develop a newcomer and immigrant accessible education campaign that focuses on how to apply for and book and use accessible. Number 7, create an awareness campaign for the public on the use of e-scooters, including wheelchair parks and bicycles. Next slide. The next one, create an awareness campaign for the public on the use of e-scooters, including wheelchair parks and bicycles. Number 9, update the municipal design guideline for accessibility in the built environment. The next, update HRM policy / standard documentation. So what this is referring to for folks is the HRM temporary workplace traffic control manual supplement, as well as HRM transportation capital work tenders specification and the construction site manual administrative order for temporary pedestrian paths going construction. So these are just, folks, I know this one sounds a lot wordy, I apologize. These are just manuals and rules that say Public Works would use when they're looking at temporary paths or construction. So, and I believe there was a glossary sent out to you folks as well. So it highlights in that glossary what is exactly. Next slide. Now we're moving on to the built environment. So we're hoping to apply CSA B651 23 standards for future municipal infrastructure to the greatest extent possible. And the next, apply CSA B651 18 standards for major renewal to current municipal infrastructure to the greatest extent possible. The next audit up to 100 billion plus public facilities, recreational, all parks and playgrounds, and trails to assess when repair or upgraded or needed to maintain accessibility. Next slide. Ensure that parks, walkways, and equipment for parks and environmental playgrounds, beaches, sports, playing fields, etc., and recreational facilities are accessible for individuals with disabilities to the greatest extent possible. And this was a new recommendation. Continue to work with other levels of government and industry experts to identify best practices for signs and other warning devices that would best inform all road users of temporary sidewalk disruption. Next slide. And then the last one for built environment. Upgrade up to 30 bus stops within the urban transit service boundary to ensure that they follow accessible standards where the ramp can be deployed. The bus stop has a concrete landing pad. And then in brackets it says minimum size at 1.5 meters times 2.5 meters with access to the sidewalk. So those are just more the standards that we would have to implement for those sidewalks and for the bus stop to be accessible. Next slide. So we're on to information and communication. So increased training for municipal staff on how to share accommodate persons with disabilities. Develop guide for municipal promotional material, which makes them accessible to individuals with disabilities. Make the municipal intranet an intranet website and web content conform to the web content accessibility guidelines. And those guidelines are known nationwide. Next slide. And then ensure plain language and formatting in compliance to the web content accessibility guidelines. Format for all municipal communication. And this was a new one. Conduct research and implement alternative channels such as live chat or artificial intelligence to enhance digital accessibility with 311 service. Next slide. And then under goods and services, this was our new recommendation. So increase the amount of accessible gym equipment by 3% over 3 years, either by purchasing new equipment or replacing existing equipment. Create internal guidelines regarding accessible gym equipment and HRM operator recreational facilities to support this recommendation. Next slide. This too was a new one. Increase the capacity by 5% per year for 3 years in summer recreation inclusion program, and also increase the number of availability of available inclusion support staff for fall, winter, spring program by 5% for 3 years. Next slide. So now we're on to employment. So this is a new recommendation. Collect data on the number of candidates who self-identify as having a disability versus the number of candidates hired with a disability. Establishing hiring procedures which require the finding accommodation for individuals with disabilities on job posting within the municipality, as well as including accommodation available through the interview process. Next slide. These three on this slide are also new. So develop and promote a process so all employees would be able to request an accommodation if needed. Develop corporate training which educate the hiring managers about the workplace accommodation policy. Develop a process within human resources to encourage students with disabilities to apply for work. Next slide. Then, and these two are also establish guidelines, processes to ensure job descriptions and job postings are reviewed from an accessibility perspective, and so, i.e., relevance of license or functional requirement of the position. And the next, compile or complete up to 9 engagement with groups who support individuals with disabilities seeking employment. And I know, folks, that was a lot. So I'm more than happy to try to take questions. What I will let you folks know too, when I meant to say that, is this new strategy will be a 3-year strategy. And so once we determine what the recommendation will be, then it will be up to HRM to work on all of those recommendations within a 3-year plan. And we do have a candidate behind us that would support and implement these recommendations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa. Just have to do one little tweak for a minute and switch the screens around for me. Okay, so we're going to move on to questions for Melissa, and we will start with April Adams. Would you have any questions or comments to share?
No questions, but fantastic job. Thanks for sharing. Love the updates.
And then we'll move on to Rochelle Manette.
Thank you. Thanks for that presentation. Lots of exciting stuff to see, some new things. I have 3 questions, but I will see how far we get in the 5 minutes of allotted time. The first one's about the a point in the built environment part. In one of the notes, it said something about like auditing up to up to 100 like facilities. And I was wondering if that it sounds like it's like 100 or under. And so I guess I was wondering why the cap and like how will it be decided what gets audited and what doesn't?
Good question, Ruth. Oh, so you're right. It is up to 100, and it's not just buildings. It could be persons playground. So we came up with this number based on what HRM was able to audit over the last couple of years. And so that's where the 100 number came from. So the hope is within the 3 years to be able to audit up to 100. We might even be able to do more than that, but we just wanted to be on the safe side.
Thanks. The next question was about in the goods and services portion. The part about summer recreation inclusion programs, is that like just like child and youth focused programming, or does that also include adult programming?
Yeah, it was going to include all programs.
Awesome. Yay, more adult programming. And then third was part of the information and communication. It's more of a comment. Really excited about the live chat thing for 311. I think that's going to be super helpful. I just wanted to make a note about like AI and how lately there's been some information like circulating around about how AI is like pretty environmentally detrimental. So, and like also very frustrating to use a lot of the time. So super support live chat. I felt inclined to say AI, there is a lot of drawbacks to it.
Yeah, and thank you for that. We just put AI in there to give people an idea. We're not really sure what the live chat will look like. That's why within the first year there will be research being conducted, and then from there we'll have our IT department kind of determine what is the best course of action, but really appreciate that comment.
Thank you. And that is it for me. Thanks.
Great. Next, we have Deputy Mayor Kathy Deagle-Gaiman. Would you have
Thank
a
you very
question?
much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. Melissa, you know, as always, you do such a nice job of making this very clear, which is good. So the only piece that I'm a little concerned about that I think might be missing, because this is a strategy that we're going to live with for 3 years before we go back and look at it again. And that's around, and it is around inclusion for recreation, especially for our youth. So when we recapitalize a park, only new parks get accessible equipment. But if we are replacing, recapitalizing end of life, then we don't have accessible equipment at the park. And so I was kind of hoping that in this strategy we might see that. Is there still an opportunity to speak with the park staff about that? Or is that something that you see we're going to have to bring through to regional council? I just wondered if it would be the strategy or regional council.
Yeah, so that I'm not sure, Deputy Mayor, what would be the best course of action there. So can I get a little bit more specific on what you're looking for and what I could do with go back to parks and see if we can tweak something in the draft recommendation?
Okay. So I'll put something together and send it to you then, just
Yeah,
the experience that we've had, and I can send it to you, see if
Yeah.
where it might fit. Because I do think increasing the capacity by 5%, you know, part of me feels like it's not enough. What would 5% be? It would be how many spaces. So I'm sure that underneath the strategy, the objectives per year will probably be there. And the only other question I might have is, would there be, although this is a strategy and not strategies don't always have budgets, but the financial implications of this strategy over time, how
so
do we see that?
yeah, you are correct there. Deputy Mayor, so when Regional Council does approve the final version of this strategy, whatever that looks like, they're really gonna have to look at what are the financial implications. And what I've also indicated to business units is when you do your budget, you're going to have to for certain amount allocated,
Right.
knowing what would be set out in the strategy. I'm hoping that answers your question.
It does. Yeah, it does. Thank you. We'll be all set for it when we get to budget, Melissa.
Okay, thank you.
I want more accessible parks for our communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next we have Councillor Trish Purdy. Is Trish here yet? I think not. Elizabeth, yes, no?
Councillor Purdy has not joined oh, wait, I see there. Oh, no, it doesn't look like Councillor Purdy has joined yet.
Oh, okay, thank you. Next we have Councillor Paul Russell.
Thank you. Looking at point number 8, create an awareness campaign for the public on the use of e-scooters, including where to park and rider safety. The question that always comes up about something like this, the great idea. I agree with it. I agree with a lot of the presentation. Thank you very much. Something like this requires enforcement. And if it doesn't have enforcement, it is absolutely pointless. I regularly see cyclists going along and they have no helmet and just people violating the rules all over the place. So if we don't provide the enforcement of this, if we don't provide whatever the mechanism is required, some of these recommendations are going to fall flat. I'll leave that one with you. Anyway, I'm hoping that it will be able to be, that enforcement will be able to be increased. Point number 14, ensure that park walkways and equipment for parks and recreational facilities are accessible for individuals with disabilities to the greatest extent possible. I'm wondering how that's checked. Do we have, when we put in or upgrade or replace or do something, even if it's on our land, if it's on land that we lease, do we have people who go out and verify the structures afterwards and just audit them and make sure that they meet whatever accessibility standards are in place? Do you know that?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Russell. So I just want to go back to your first point
Sure.
about the e-scooters, because I totally agree with you 110%. And when I spoke to H&M staff, they thought it would be best for now to educate folks on the use of e-scooters. Enforcement is kind of tricky, apparently, in H&M, but that is something on our radar in the future on like how do we do some enforcement if needed. In terms of your second question, do you mean like after a park is created or built, or can you elaborate a little bit on what you mean here?
Sure. We have a park that was recently built right by a building that has a tenant with a lot of wheelchair users, and nothing in the park, nothing supported wheelchair users, even though they look out the window and they stare at it all day. I met with park staff at that park, and they said, yes, it's okay because the nearest accessible park is over there 2 miles, or it's over there 1.5 miles. They've got 2 great options. Meanwhile, the wheelchair users are looking out the window at the structures that have no accessible function. So we talked about putting accessibility or accessible structures there for those users. And there wasn't the understanding that I hoped there would be. And in some cases, we've seen structures go in place and we think they're accessible. But if you ask the wheelchair users, they aren't. And this is what I'm looking to see, is if we can correct that gap in what we do versus what we think we are doing.
More. So, Councilor Russell, I would have to take that back myself because I don't feel like I'm equipped to kind of answer that for you at the moment.
Okay. Third out of 4 questions is point 16, upgrade to 30 bus stops within the urban transit service boundary. Do we know how many bus stops we have that do not meet the accessibility standards?
That I don't know for sure because I know that transit was going back. I was trying to get and receive those numbers. So I don't want to give you full numbers.
No, that's fair. And the final question, this is a strategy. It's not an implementation plan. I recognize that. And the implementation plan would come later. But is there even a rough time frame for implementation of this?
So, like I mentioned, the strategy, once it is approved by regional council, it would be a 3-year plan. So what that would look like is that within 3 years of that plan being enacted, then these recommendations should be complete in that 3-year time.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Next we have Liz Dowell. Would you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I was looking through the presentation and it's very detailed. There's just a few additions that I'd like to suggest. For example, yeah, so the plan is to set up a program to increase awareness. So one thing I would like to add so the interpreter is just going in for clarification here. So you're planning to put on a program to increase awareness for those who are immigrating to Canada so that they can learn more about access buses. Hunter, do you mind taking over?
So for new consumers that are new to using just any random person that's new to using the bus. I just wanted to add that because I think it'd be beneficial for newcomers, but also people that just aren't familiar with the Accessibus. And I do wish that some of the stops were closer to stores, you know what I mean? Like I just wish that the bus would stop closer. So if I go in somewhere shopping and I come out, I don't have to walk so far to get to the bus. It's just a lot easier for me to get to and from. Like back in the old days, we had a bus that was just very easy to access. Everyone would go in, come off, no problem. And I just feel like everything's so far away. Does that make any sense? Was that clear?
Yeah, it was Liz. Do you mean the conventional bus?
Okay, so no longer talking about the accessible, it's just generally speaking.
Okay.
So in terms of terminals, I just noticed that they're very far from stores and things like that. Like it's just really forcing people to have to like walk or carry their things. Like if they want to go to the store, then they have to walk all the way back to the terminal. And again, like I'm just not comfortable. Like back in the old days, we used to have bus service. It was really nice. It was close to stores, or here as an example. So the Simpson Sears. Sorry, it's just not, hands aren't cooperating today. So yeah, so back in the day at the Simpson Sears, it was really cool. Like it was nice and close, but then the terminal moved further away from where it was before to different areas, and it really just again forces people to have to walk, and you're walking with your kids and everything, and I'm just really not, it's not as comfortable as it used to be, just as an example. Where were we? Oh, and then my third point. I think it's really important to teach the bus drivers so that they can learn how to manage problems that could come up on the bus. Like, because situations do arise, I've seen them a few times, and then I feel like it's just worse than it was back in the day. But again, that's just personally, I just won't get on the bus until it improves. I just think the issue needs to be rectified. All right, and let me see here. Oh, and I am happy to see the live chat service. I think that's wonderful. I'm very excited for it, and I think a lot of deaf people will be very happy to use it. So if they have a quick question, they can just shoot off a message and get a response relatively fast. But AI, on the other hand, I'm a little bit skeptical about AI. However, some programs, the AI is quite stubborn. Like it really won't let you speak directly to a person. And I've experienced in other customer service channels, it's just very protective, but I really want to speak to a person. So as an example, Apple, they have a wonderful system in place. And then AI was introduced. And some is good, like no complaints. I'll take, if I have to talk to a real person though, it's very quick and immediate. So I think if we're going to be trying to look for a nice example, Apple's a great company to look at for that. As well as for 311. I'm sure many deaf people are not comfortable using ASL, that use ASL might not be as comfortable typing in English. So it would be nice if they had some sort of VRS option, so it was compatible with VRS, like a virtual reference service. Sorry, video relay services is VRS. So that people know, like, oh, if I get a call through VRS, not to hang up, it's not a scam, so that people know, oh, it's a deaf person. I just think there needs to be more awareness of what VRS is, so that operators don't immediately hang up the phone. So it's just is it compatible with VRS? Is that a problem, or where are we at with that? Do we need more explanation on VRS, perhaps? Like just as like an option? Like you could have AI, live chat, phone operator, and then VRS, like if that was a option that we could add to the sort of telephone tree. And that's everything I had. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Great,
so
thank-
much, Liz.
So we can move on, yes?
So interpreter mistake, not like a telephone tree, just another option that you can have.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Next, we're going to move to June Feswick.
Hi, Melissa, that was an awesome promotion plan that you had out there. I just wonder though if there's anybody that goes out after a plan has been implemented, to check that it's actually done. I've recently I've recently started using a walker and going into bathrooms, which before when I was able to walk just 2 feet were accessible. I'm now finding that actually they're not so as accessible as people think. Sometimes the inside of the bathroom is okay, but the door getting into the bathroom is not. And I just wonder, like, if someone says, "Oh yes, my building is handicap accessible," does anybody actually go and check that it is?
So June, that's a good question. So I feel like it's 2 separate questions here.
Okay.
So first, when we had that strategy, we still have that strategy. So what we do is we do annual updates to regional council on the progress of the strategy, on the recommendations, sorry. And those annual updates are put on the HRM website. Number 2, when it comes to the billing environment, I'm not sure what billing you're typically referring to because we could only control HRM billing. So if you're going into, say, apartment billings or businesses or any of those kind of bill environments, that's kind of outside of our scope. So I hope I answered your question.
So is there anything else to add, June?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
That's great. Okay, great. We'll move to Glenn Babcock.
Thank you. Well, I'd love to talk about buses, but I made the decision to live 20 minutes outside of Dartmouth where we don't have sidewalks, don't have bus shelters, and it takes me about 25 minutes just to walk to a bus stop. So I can't really comment on that too much. I might look into Accessibus, but I don't even know if it goes out this far. So what I do have some background in is more of the employment and workplace accommodation issues. So just a couple of comments there. I guess I was a little bit surprised to see that it needed to be a new recommendation to develop and provide a process so that employees would be able to request an accommodation. That seems to me something that should have been around for a couple of decades by now. Certainly in other places that I worked, that process has been available. And I have to admit, I don't really know how large in terms of number of employees or number of managers the city of Halifax is. But one thing I don't see here, which might be worth considering, is the idea of when you are hiring people, regardless of whether they have a disability or not, to try to develop diverse interview panels. It's something that was recently done with my previous employer, where they tried to ensure that interview panels, especially when they were talking to a lot of different candidates, represented diversity within the organization so that you didn't just have, 3 white men doing interview panels for jobs. So that's one thing that you might want to consider looking at. And again, the other thing, based on the size of Halifax as an organization, I don't know whether you can do this or not, but a lot of employees with disabilities are entirely reliant on being able to use assistive technology to accomplish their work. And yet it puts a great deal of pressure on the employee themselves or on the manager of that employee to know how to support that assistive technology. And if the assistive technology doesn't work, the employee may not be able to adequately deliver some or all of their work until that assistive technology is working again. So again, previous employer, but they actually developed within their IT department some expertise in terms of supporting assistive technology for employees with disabilities, including a priority line that they could get through to get IT support, and even help with selecting and acquiring devices to help with that workplace accommodation.
So Glenn, those are great comments. One thing I will say is that again, we do currently have diverse clients. That's one thing that we've been doing for quite some time. And on the technology front, I totally agree with you. I know that with human resources and the IT department, they're working constantly together. So when a request comes in for say technology, that those two departments can work together to make sure that employee receives the accommodation that they request. But thank you for those comments.
Okay, that's it for me.
Okay, great. Thank you, Glenn. Next, we have Oliver Keith.
Great. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So great presentation, Melissa. Found it both very informative and exciting. Just got a couple points I wanted to bring up, mostly kind of following along with Glenn in regards to employment. I think in 2024, half the battle is the data battle. Collecting information and trying to understand the situation we are in is very important. So in regards to point 25 and point 28, I was thinking about collecting data on the number of candidates who self-identify as having a disability and the number of candidates hired with a disability. I think the data we can collect and how that data is used can be expanded on, especially in regards to point 28 and how corporate training can educate hiring managers in regards to workplace accommodation policy. So for example, like questions I would think could be associated with like surveys moving forward would be how hiring managers are trained to ensure they're aware of and comply with accessibility requirements and best practices, how that training occurs prior to and moving forward. Also questions like what are the retention rates of employees who self-identify versus those who do not? I think those are very important questions. And I think thirdly, and quite most importantly, is if there are any mechanisms in place for the candidates who do apply and do have a part within these data retention services to report any issues or barriers they face during the application process. I think it's easy to get feedback from the hiring managers themselves and the organizations that you're applying to. But as someone with a disability, to provide your own feedback and have that feedback be used in data moving forward would be very beneficial, I think, when trying to understand the problem. My second point is in regards to point 27, in how to develop and promote a process that all employees can request an accommodation. I think that's great. I think that's very exciting. One thing I wanted to add, though, is it's important to remember that disability is not necessarily stagnant and can change and evolve with time very quickly. I know with my arthritis, for example, It's an evolving condition that can worsen or improve with time. And so having the fluidity in like being able to ask for an accommodation and the timeline of that accommodation being able to change and change quickly is very important. So for example, how an accommodation can either disappear or reappear with time, and being able to kind of give that feedback quickly, but also understanding the fluidity of the nature of it. My last point is I just wanted to emphasize how great point 22 was. I think it's fantastic that there is an attempt to increase the accessible gym equipment within the HRM. I think over 3 years and 3%, that's a great benchmark. I think that in the realm of parks and health of those who require accessible equipment, that's fantastic news. And I think it's a great idea. One thing I will add though is, and I could be wrong and I'm not sure on the clarity of this, is that a lot of gyms in the HRM are private. And so I'm not sure how that would connect to private or smaller gyms in that regard, if that would even be connected at all. I'm sure not. Yeah, I didn't think so. Yeah. Perfect. But yeah, just wanted to emphasize point 22, great point. And those were that's it. Sorry, I know that was a lot.
No, and thank you so much, Oliver. I really appreciate and love your comment. And to your last comment, no, it would be only gyms within like recreational facilities that kind of is attached to HRM, right? Because private gyms, we can't, that's outside of our mandate.
Right, great. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to emphasize at the end of the day, just the data point. I think it's really important to try and get as much information as you can within that time frame. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. So that would be my main point.
I think that's something that HRM is recognizing, that we need to start collecting more data in general, not just with employment, but with all of this stuff. So we have a way of moving forward and kind of our benchmarks along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you very much, Melissa.
Thank you, Oliver. Next, we have Vivian Tharmaratnam, but I'm not sure if Elizabeth, you can confirm he's not here. He's not present. Elizabeth?
I don't believe so. And the reason I say that is there is a user who's in the meeting. I can unmute them.
Okay.
It may be him. It's coming
That's
up.
why I was wondering
It's
too.
a bunch of numbers and letters.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna unmute that. Just unmute. Okay, they don't seem to be unmuting.
Okay.
So I would say we can just move on to the next item in that case.
Okay. I'm next on the list. I'm the last of the list too.
My apologies.
That's okay. Okay, so to start, and yes, like everybody's saying, this is a really great presentation. I'm really enjoying what is written on here. For number 4, which is increased targeted public awareness about snow removal for the disability community. I do like the idea of awareness, but what I'd like to kind of suggest is to kind of go increase targeted public awareness and how they can participate in snow removal for the disability community. Because I think a lot of awareness is great, but the idea and the encouragement of participation would probably be needed for this kind of snow removal, because as we have had a previous meeting, it is a little complex to be able to get contractors out and to get the job done. And so if we can find a way to encourage participation within the community of being able to get out there with a shovel at street corners and whatnot, like that would be something I'd like to suggest. For the next part, I've written some down. I know some it'll be a quick comment. Again, up to the audit to 100 buildings, public facilities, etc. Like in upgrades, and it's the same thing too. I don't know where exactly which number would fit into this. The one thing that I'm always concerned with is when we approve new structures or that we're trying to kind of reconfigure old buildings to be more accessible. I always feel like lights and sound are kind of always something that just seems to be a little bit too overlooked, because especially when it comes to echoes, migraines do ensue. Same thing with lights, sometimes with approval for project designs in terms of architecture, we're too obsessed with like glass atriums, which just, and high, tall ceilings that just, the sounds just echo crazily. Like we just sometimes have to look at, you know, the well-being of people within that building and not what's the visual architecture and how great this design looks like. So that would be that. For the next one is number 15, I think. Where did I say? Okay, yeah. Okay, so to continue to work with other levels of government and industry experts to identify best practices for signage and other warning devices that would best inform all road users of temporary sidewalk disruptions. The one thing that came to mind as well is like to also put into consideration, because it's great that we're looking at signage and warning devices, but there's also too is like the paths itself. Like I find that what we have is a problem when we're trying to, as pedestrians, to cross such temporary placements of like this sidewalk disruptions, is that we're always led into a path that is uneven, it's full of rocks, and when the cars pass through, the rocks rolled around even further, even more, it starts creating grooves. Like what I'd like to understand is that we can also look at having smoother crossing paths, like a platform that is placed by default, whether it's metal. I've seen metal ones, and I don't know why I haven't seen them in many temporary like sidewalk reconfigurations. Like that's the one thing as well. And the other thing too is the possibility of even having temporary crosswalks, because so many times that we walk a path and then we're like walking far away from an intersection, and we're too far along in the path to decide to avoid the closed sidewalk. So if there's some places that I find that we could benefit from a temporary cross path, like a crosswalk, so we can get to the other side of the street, because where else do we go? You know what I mean? Like you walk and then bam, that would mean that we have to walk onto the street in order to keep going. So that's just something that I'd like to highlight. I'm looking at numbers because I did come up with like a few that I wanted to mention. I mentioned number 21, just going to be right quick with this one. Oh yeah, as far as it goes for AI, I'm in full support with a lot of people. I think AI can be of benefit in more ways than one, but I think to go from one extreme to the other is what I'm concerned about, because there are still a lot of people who rely on a person-to-person connection and not a person-to-technology connection. I know for myself, it does work immensely against me every time too, because a lot of AI, new technology, we're constantly introducing new technology that even for people with cognitive disabilities to constantly relearn or to learn new ways of interacting with technology, it's a huge stress, and it also causes a great deal of avoidance. So what I would like for us to kind of understand that AI should serve a purpose to serve as many people who do find this system intuitive and they interact well with it. So to give at least some space to have people who really still need a person-to-person interaction get that chance to have that access to someone, because it can be quite a nightmare for many people, because I'm going to say like AI, a lot of like technological things to call a line or to use the chat isn't always necessarily intuitive for people with cognitive disabilities. And then I put on 27, almost there. Yeah, and to develop and promote a process so that all employees would be able to request an accommodation. I really got to say, it's sometimes really scary when you want to kind of say that you're disabled in one way, but then it's like there's still like not enough space to say, okay, I have that deficit and I would need accommodation for that. But, you know, and also even to say, like, just grabbing onto what Oliver said, like, a lot of disability can be situational. Like he says, like his arthritis will only act up on certain days. It's the same thing for myself. There's some weather days where I'm more prone to migraines. Other days it's really great. I can do well for 2-3 weeks. So I feel like there needs to be more room for us to be able to say what exactly how our disability works. Because sometimes we get this impression that we have a difficulty, but we think it's like some permanent difficulty. It's going to be like this all the time. But as Oliver mentioned, this is situational. A lot of us go through situational difficulty. So that would be, I think I covered. Oh yeah, just last one too about like built environments. And okay, I did mention that one. So yeah, I'm done. So now we'll move on to discuss the work plan. So I can lead this discussion if ever, okay. So we have like only 2 more meetings this year due to the upcoming municipal election. And so that's it. We kind of have to discuss together what we can do to better this work plan. And okay, sorry, Elizabeth, I'm kind of tripping on trying to figure out what to say here.
No worries. I did kind of want to speak to this.
Yes,
anyway.
thank you.
And
Thank you.
Melissa may want to as well. So
Right.
I know the last meeting we had a discussion where we went around and everyone kind of expressed what they'd like to see on the work plan. And the plan was for Melissa and I to take that feedback back and then kind of come up with a draft work plan. However, when Melissa and I met to chat about it, there are only 2 more scheduled meetings for the rest of the year, and that's due to the upcoming municipal election. There's a scheduled meeting in next month in August, and there's one in November, but due to the municipal election, there's no meeting in September, and there's only an if required meeting in October, which like I said, it's only if absolutely necessary. Boards and committees aren't really encouraged to meet during that time just due to the ongoing municipal election and the turnover. So due to that, and Melissa, you can certainly add anything if you would like, we were thinking that it's of course up to the committee, but it may be more useful to kind of look forward at a 2025 work plan, considering there's only a couple meetings left for this year. Melissa, I see you turned your mic off, or your mic on, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to echo Elizabeth and that, you know, we agree that that would be the best course of action if this committee has agreed with that.
So I would Chair, recommend
Sure.
maybe in this kind of, in
Yes.
light of this information, we could go around, go through the speakers list again, see if anyone has what the committee's appetite is for maybe looking ahead to a 2025 work plan and having a discussion around that. And if not, if the committee would still like to come up with a 2024 work plan, that the committee is of course more than welcome to do that as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Yes, I think this is a great idea. We can start with April Adams if you would like to share your thoughts on this idea of.
Thank you. Yeah, so I feel like my initial thoughts when I heard it were is it because you don't have enough help or manpower or women or any gender power in order to achieve it before the last 2 meetings in order to have it put in place? Because my only concern is really like, I feel like even just the comments in the media not that long about accessibility, disability, and that 2030 date, and how we use those action item words like achieving, and not us as a committee, but just as a whole in HRM, we're not. That's my only kind of concern is like, I'm happy to volunteer any help or hours or support if it's additional people helping with it that you need. But I do understand we have 2 meetings left, maybe only one. Elections are in any government are a whole different reality. So I do understand where you're both coming from at the same time. That's all for me.
Okay, thank you, April. Next, we have Rochelle Manette.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think, and so like when we chatted about it in the agenda review meeting, I forget, yeah, it was a meeting, yeah. Yeah, I thought something that we had talked about that I also want to make like clear for the committee is we're not just like not having a work plan. I think the idea was sort of like to continue to use the 2023 work plan and see if we can maybe like knock some of those things out, especially things that weren't completed in the sort of 2023 2024 year. Yeah, so it's not like we would have nothing to do. It would sort of be, let's continue tackling the things we maybe didn't get to before. At least that was my understanding, which I am all for. And I think it sort of makes sense to use our time together that way when there is sort of a lack of meetings and ability to do that. And then we could provide more sort of update on those things at the town hall that is like coming up very soon, even though it's in November. That's really soon, assuming it's in November, maybe. Assuming that's still happening with the election stuff. I can't remember what we talked about last time. Yeah, so I guess I'm all for pushing a little bit to work on a 2025 work plan, with the caveat that we like continue to work on the 2023 work plan, and see what we can do with like what's left of it, essentially. That's it.
Thanks, Rochelle. I really appreciate you just like explaining it and clarifying. That was a great way to put it out there, and I completely agree with what you just said.
Great. And I'm in support as well from two as well. Like if we can achieve things even that we had in line for 2023, I think this is a really great idea that you have, Rochelle, that we look at that as well. So next we have Deputy Mayor Kathy Deagle-Gaiman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm good with the will of the committee. I am just a little bit worried. The work plan usually gets brought forward to regional council. So if we are choosing to work with 2023 part of 2024, is there an interim work plan that then gets presented to council on behalf of the Accessibility Advisory Committee? I'm just wondering about that process.
So if anyone has,
I can
okay,
speak
sure.
to that. I don't know if I will fully answer your question, Deputy Mayor. I did take, so when Melissa and I were discussing this, and also in the agenda review, and Rochelle, you are correct, we did say that we would, or the idea was that there's the potential to continue using the 2023 work plan as a guiding document kind of in the interim. So there are, in the terms of reference for the Accessibility Advisory Committee, there's no obligation for the committee to submit a work plan to the Executive Standing Committee.
Okay.
So it would be, that was something that I had thought of as well. It's not in the terms of reference, so it's kind of just at the committee's discretion if they want to put together a work plan each year. So there wouldn't be an issue with no 2024 work plan.
Okay. Yeah, I might do a little bit of checking more on that. Thank you, Elizabeth. And Madam Chair, just for your information, Trish Purdy is there. She might be the DX, whatever. But she is muted, so she's not able to speak.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I did ask to unmute. Now that I know that it is her, I can absolutely promote to panelist.
Yeah. That's all for me, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor.
Hello. Were you waiting for me?
Yes, hello.
Hello. Yes, I'm okay with doing whatever the committee decides best. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, great. You have anything else to add? It's all good? Yes? Okay, thank you.
It's all good.
Okay, great, thanks. Next we have Councillor Paul Russell.
So Counselor Russell is actually no longer in the meeting. He did have to leave
Oh,
early,
okay.
so you can go to
Okay.
the next name.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Liz Dow.
Yeah, I mean, I've got nothing planned for September or November, so I'm all good with postponing the work plan until 2025. That's totally okay.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, there seems to be an interpreter error. Yeah, in my opinion, I don't see why not. We can't wait until 2025 to continue on with the work plan. That's totally okay with me.
Okay, great, thank you. Next we have June Feswick.
For me, I think I would like to continue the 2023 to 2024. I like to finish one thing before we start another thing. That was all my input. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next we have Glenn Babcock.
Certainly not limited to this committee, but it's always seemed strange to me that you're just finalizing your 2024 work plan 2/3 of the way through the year. So I would be all in favor of continuing with the current work plan or the 2023 one, and maybe trying to develop a work plan that actually starts earlier in 2025 so that we encompass more of the actual year.
Great, thank you. Next we have Oliver Keith.
I think actually I had a thought and then Glenn gave a good point. I actually think that makes sense. I think I would be okay with a new work plan in 2025, but I'm also okay with maintaining the 2023 plan to get an early start. Yeah, that's about all I have to add. Not a lot productive though.
Okay, great, thank you. So obviously Vivian hasn't joined us, I'm pretty sure, Elizabeth, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, great. And last on the list is me for this one. I actually really agree with all of the points that were brought forth. I feel like it's like we almost need to kind of like have, and it just seems like we have such a limited amount of time to be able to get together and to figure out what can still be done from 2023 from here to the end of the year. We should even look at what was looked at for 2023 and what could be carried on into 2025 so we can best focus on what can be achieved this year by the end of the year. That would be a suggestion that I would have, like it's so we can know. And another good point that we had at our meeting for this meeting is that we kind of have a lot of new people in this committee, and a lot of us, and especially myself, like we're all kind of new, we're all kind of learning the ropes. I feel like we need a little bit more orientation of knowing what the options are, how do things look like, what can we do that really honors the role that we are playing with this municipality. So that would be something that I do find that I have that kind of concern, is that we have a lot of people on this committee that could make use of like kind of an orientation meeting, just so it would help us, like when we're in these discussions, that we really know our key points and really know what we can propose as a strategy, like what we can do to carry things forward, if that makes any sense.
And Celine, I can certainly take that that idea back to the clerk's office.
Okay, great.
I
Thanks.
second that, Celine. I'm completely on board with you in that comment.
Thank you. Because that's the thing. It's like I've been with this committee since May, and there's a lot of stuff that I really like. I'm aching to achieve, but at the same time, too, like again, even throughout this meeting, learning the ropes of even just about how a motion is carried and defeated, etc. But that's the thing. It's like I really do feel, and I really agree that we should look maybe towards the next meeting. What is for 2023 that we can really actually find an actionable plan to get it done, right? And then just be realistic, you know, like what is from the 2023 that can be carried into 2025. I could probably keep repeating on it, but I guess that's it. I think I'm just gonna look at just last. Yeah, no, I'm done. I have enough that I've said. I'm just catching on to like we have like 15 minutes left of this meeting, and it would be cool if anybody else had something else that came to mind that they would like to share. Rochelle?
Yeah, thanks. In the spirit of continuing on some of the things that were on the last work plan, something that we didn't really get to in the year that it was planned for was having a presentation or a conversation with like parking, if I'm not mistaken. And that was something that was like accessible parking sort of more broadly. And I find it like does keep coming up. And so if this could be like a request to have them come and do a presentation, that would be cool. While we're here, may as well request a presentation from parking. Yeah, I think that's all I have. So thanks.
So, okay, and Lisbeth?
I don't want to speak on behalf of Melissa, but I think that could be something that Melissa and I could take back and maybe look into and maybe have an update for the next agenda review for the August meeting.
Okay, that's good. Even what Liz had mentioned earlier, and I'm really all for this as well, is just when it comes to bus terminals, bus stops, there's not enough stops that are close by to entrances of key places. And I can even tell you right now, without disclosing how I've come to know this, just to get to places that are like, we're talking grocery stores, but we're also talking about like attractions like museums, the Discovery Center. It's very, very difficult to try to bring a bunch of people, bring disabled people from the corner of Barrington and Spring Garden over down to Lower Water Street to the Discovery Center. So that's what I mean. Like, it just feels like there are a lot of like main places that do not have main stops. And I think lots of people, I would actually be very comfortable to say thousands of people would benefit from this, that we really do look at bus stops and how are they really serving disabled people and just elderly people, etc. That would be something I would definitely love to see that we capture in this 2024 season. You know, I think there's a lot of importance to that, because even just the way that I see a lot of that's one last thing I'd like to really add is like, I do take the bus a lot more now and nowadays. And the one thing that I see often, if we have like, let's say because it still surrounds bus stop usage. When a bus arrives and you want to get out and it's on the back end and you're trying to scream out to the bus driver, it doesn't open. A lot of the times the bus driver doesn't see what's going on at the back and they keep driving. So imagine if you have a mobility issue and they sent you to a bus stop that is almost a kilometer down. What do you do with somebody who has a serious mobility issue? They were trying to rely on that stop in order for them to not have too much path to walk. So that's just a small snippet of an idea, is that I observe this all too often, that too many people are failed by the bus driver to be able to get off at the stop that they want. that the bus driver insists right away, oh, all is good, and they keep driving. And so that's what I mean. Like, I find like we need to look at how bus stops are really serving disabled people. So that would be my vote. I'm with Liz on that.
Just wanted to make another point.
Mhm.
I just wanted to add, I do remember a while back, maybe 10, 15 years ago, we had services called, it was a free bus called Red,
Fred,
or was
I
it
think it was.
free? Yeah, that was really cool. What happened to that? It's gone now. Oh, I thought it was so nice before, especially during the summer from, I think it was May until maybe even October. It was really nice. I think we should bring that back. Just an idea.
Okay, great. Thank you for that idea. Has anybody else have something to share? Elizabeth, you had your hand up previously. I don't know.
I just wanted to mention one other thing about the work plan that I did not touch on before. I know I had mentioned this as well at our agenda review for this meeting. During the discussion for the work plan at the June meeting, I know transportation was one of the, if not the most kind of pressing issue that was identified by members. And I believe I'd mentioned at the agenda review that I had, or staff had reached out to Halifax Transit through the clerk's office, and the committee is slated to receive a presentation from Halifax Transit at the November meeting. So my hope would be a lot of these questions, or any questions that members have, Celine and Liz included, Halifax Transit staff would be able to answer those questions, and that will help inform if transportation, you want that on the 2025 work plan. Following a staff presentation, you'll hopefully have a clear idea of what is within the committee's mandate and jurisdiction.
And one thing I'd like to add to that is just like previously saying, orientation, like when now knowing that in November that we're going to have a lot more of interaction with the transit committee, et cetera, that would give me ample amount of time to prepare. There's some stuff I think I can actually try to bring forward directly to the transit committee or anyone involved in transit, and try to like convince them to make a change without having to make it a meeting. But that's the thing. It's like, again, like if we can have some sort of orientation, so to make sure that meetings run smoothly, that we're not trying to find our words, or we are going on a tangent. It's just to kind of prevent the tangent within a meeting, because that's what usually happens. Is like I met with something and then I go on a tangent and I'm trying to figure out, and then we leave the meeting and I'm like, oh God, I wish I could have said it this differently. Wasn't prepared, right? So I think it just feels like we need to look at where all members of this committee can be a little bit more better prepared for things like this.
Yeah, and that is something I will also take back to the clerk's office.
Okay, great, thank you. So we have 7 minutes left.
Sorry, just another point here from Liz.
Yes.
Yep. I hope that we can have that meeting in November, specifically related to the bus and transportation. It would be really nice, because the last time that I was on the accessibility committee, so the interpreter just missed the last part. My term was ended in November of 2024. So it'd be nice if we could have the presentation relating to the Accessibus and transportation around then. It's nice. I'm looking forward to it. It will be.
Okay, great. Yeah, yes, sorry. Sometimes I can't tell if there's something more to add.
You're good.
It's all good. Okay, thank you. So yes, we have 6 more minutes left, and I was wondering if anybody else had something more input onto this work plan. It appears no one has anything to share. I think we've made our point. Do you agree, Elizabeth, that this meeting can reach an end? Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would just draw your attention to 10 added items. There are none. Item 11 is the date of the next meeting. So normally the chair would also just remind
great.
members that the next meeting should say on your annotated agenda there, August the 19th.
Yes, yeah. So yes, date of next meeting, August 19th. And it is safe to say that this meeting is adjourned?
And you will just have to, also
Okay.
call for a mover to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, okay. And I would like to
That is all.
call for a mover to adjourn this meeting.
Liz moves to adjourn the meeting.
Liz moved to adjourn the meeting, and I can declare this meeting adjourned.
We shouldn't need a seconder.
Pardon?
Oh, I just said we should not need a seconder to,
Oh, we don't need a
adjourn.
second. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's adjourned.
Okay, thank you. I promise, guys, I'll win this. I'll win this for the next meeting. I'll get better at this. Okay, well, great. Thank you so much for everyone to join in, and this
Unless
meeting.
someone opposes the meeting is adjourned, then we would need a
Okay,
second.
because does anybody oppose that this meeting is adjourned? Nobody opposes this meeting to be adjourned. Going once, going twice. We adjourn this meeting? Yes?
Okay.
Thank you.
Great
Thanks,
job,
everyone.
Celine. Thanks,
Thanks.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you. All right, bye.